Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name's Angela and this is Taught Me Not. So we'll start with the name. I am a special education teacher and I crochet. So I have been crocheting a very long time. I started as a very young child and I haven't taken many breaks. I have taken a few months here and there as I got older, especially in college when classes would get really busy. I would take some kind of longer chunks, but crocheting's always been kind of my main hobby. Um, and it's been something that makes me unique among people my own age. Not so much anymore because as we're starting to push 30, more and more of my friends are starting to enjoy crocheting. But when I was a kid, I was the only kid I knew who crocheted. And my journey with crochet actually started in a kind of unique way. So I started crocheting because my occupational therapist thought that holding a hook and yarn would be a good way to teach my fingers the proper fine motor skills they needed for me to be able to properly hold a pencil and write. So that was a fantastic idea that she had. She only taught me chain stitches. I don't think she actually knows how to really crochet on her own, or if she does, then she did not teach me more than just that basic stitch of the chain stitch, but it opened a little like door in my brain that led to lots of books and free patterns online as a kid, and me just kind of self-teaching. So I have been doing this a pretty long time, and yeah, I use YouTube patterns, I use written patterns, and I have recently started doing my own designs. This is not my own design. This is a virus shawl, and I want to say it was the Crochet Crowd that I found this pattern on. And the yarn is a Caron cake. So that is what this is that I'm wearing today. But I do have some projects that I have done completely on my own. I've done lots of different types of projects. So when I was younger, I did a lot more of amigurumi, which I hope I say correctly. I've also done wearables more recently. And when I was younger, like a teenager, I did a ton of Graphgans. But this was before corner to corner was a thing. The ones that I did were made out of little tiny 2-inch granny squares, and you sewed them all up by hand when you were done. So I made a lot of those, and I made them pretty big. They were not small baby blankets. They were like, you could use those well into like with a toddler. And I use a few of them still as an adult. So even though they don't cover like your full size of your body, they were still like a good 3 to 4 feet, I would say was probably the average size that I used to do. And aside from that, I've also done, you know, your typical hats and scarves and that sort of thing. So that's a little bit about my background. And so we'll share a little bit about what I hope to accomplish with the channel. So the idea of the channel is starting out as accountability for myself. So I have decided that in 2023, I'm going to be doing a temperature project, and I'm a little anxious about it, to be honest. I've never done one before. I know that the hype has died down a little, and that a lot of other crocheters, seasoned crocheters, have the same concerns when starting out. And so the main concerns that I've heard other people share are it takes a whole year and you're only focusing on one project, which is tough. Another thing that a lot of people have brought up is not knowing the right amount of yarn to buy, and what if you get the wrong dye lot. And then another thing that I have heard people say is that they get a little bit like bored / burnt out with doing the same project for so long. Those are really the main things I've heard. So I was thinking through different ways that I could preemptively or proactively avoid some of that. And this is kind of my idea or my plan. So what I'm planning to do is to take us on a YouTube journey designing a temperature project. This one is going to not be a regular blanket. It's going to be a blanket cardigan, which I've never made before. I have done cardigans, I have done blankets, I have never done a blanket cardigan, and I'll share a little bit more about what that is in the next video where I'm, showing you the yarn and that sort of thing. But that's the project, is what we're gonna do. And because it's a blanket cardigan, I will be able to size it to my body, because the other thing I was worried about or anxious about with doing a temperature blanket is some of these get like humongous. Like, I have seen people do like 6 months as half the blanket, and then they do the other 6 months and they sew them together, or they just have 2 separate blankets. Well, if you're measuring something to your body as you're making it, number one, it's one size fits all, because every person who watches the video will be able to measure to their own body and see how I figured out how big to make something, which makes making the pattern pretty easy. And then number two, it'll be easy to tell when it's getting out of control. And so if it does start to get out of control size-wise and I don't catch it soon enough, we may split it into 2 projects, but they would both be, well, I'm not even gonna say that. We'll decide when we get to that point. When we get to like July, we'll make a decision. Are we sticking with 1 project, or are we splitting into 2? And it'll just depend on how big the piece is by that time. So yeah, so that's kind of the point with that. And then the next thing that I was kind of hoping to do to kind of, preemptively or proactively keep myself from burning out, is that I'm going to keep myself accountable by uploading these videos. I'm also going to be taking you guys through the design process. So as I'm designing my own pattern, I think going on that design journey is something that will hold my attention a little bit more than just like, oh yeah, there's my project that I got bored with because I couldn't do more than X amount of stitches at a time because I was waiting for the weather. So the design process will give me something additional to do to work towards that project during the town times while we're still waiting for weather to happen. And then something else I'm going to try is, because I'm designing my own project, I can change up the stitches however I want. So this is not going to be, a lot of times temperature projects are very basic stitches. They're just single crochets back and forth, or it's double crochets back and forth, or even when it is a pattern stitch, it is 1 pattern stitch for the entire project. I don't think that I could do that for a whole year. So my plan is to use multiple different types of stitches together in the project. So that is the journey we're going to be going on together with the temperature blanket. So let's see, I've told you about me, I told you about why we're starting the channel, I've told you about the project. I think that's pretty much it for this little intro video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'm excited to see where this goes, and welcome. Don't forget to subscribe. Bye everyone.